Okay, this is where it all starts with the overview. And I'm going to go through Hello World. I'm going to talk about the software. I'm going to talk about how to install everything, where to find the install videos. Actually, I already told you about that. And go through some really boring basic stuff. But some people who have never programmed in Java before need this stuff. So that's what this is for. So if you've programmed in Java before and you're watching this at home, skip this video, go on to the next one. So we know what Java is, I hope. We don't know what Java is? Oh my god. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Developed by Sun? Not owned by Sun anymore. Owned by Oracle now. Yeah. I'm waiting for Java and Oracle to become one, like the products, like the Oracle database to be part of Java. So that's number one reason why you want to start studying. If you don't know Java yet, you got to learn Java if you're going to work in computer science, software engineering. It's like going to be, Oracle owns it. So, not that when Sun owned it, it wasn't any as popular, but it's definitely going to be integrated more with concepts. Another good reason why you want to learn Java is most of your Android development, actually all of your Android development is on Java. And if you're lucky enough, I'm pushing to teach my Android class again next term. So if you take this class, learn Java, or if you're taking the data structures class, which is Java-based, those two actually go hand in hand because that'll teach you more of the core computer science. Data structures is normally like an undergrad kind of course, but I don't know. I'm teaching it this term with Java, actually. So, and then you take the Android class next term, and you'll be set. Actually, it's pretty good background to start mobile device development. Every one of those platforms is Java-based, and the tools for it all work with Eclipse, which is what I'm going to demo. So if you install Java, install Eclipse. When you get to the Android class, if you're interested in that and you take that class, you can just install the API for the Android development. You got the emulator, you got everything, and you're set. So I just learn what to do with it, actually. That's the hard part. So general purpose object-oriented languages, Java is a general purpose object-oriented language based on C, C++. Well, the syntax is based on it. So if you're familiar with C, familiar with any programming language, Java is actually quite easy to pick up. It follows the same variable initialization, declarations, looping, all those programming language constructs are practically identical. The only thing that's really a huge difference is what Java provides in terms of web development, the RMI, the JDBC, all of the different tools that go with the Enterprise Edition. Definitely a plus over C++, and equivalent to what I would call the .NET platform. So, I don't call that, but it's called .NET. But the tool set is, I would call it equivalent in terms of a platform, because .NET is going to give you a middleware type of platform to program on, and Java is pretty much a middleware type of language. It's a hybrid language, so it's part compiled, part interpreted. So it kind of mirrors it, I think, in a lot of ways, resembles it. So it's designed for web, internet development, widespread acceptance, widespread use. Simple, here's your sales pitch. It's simple, fixes some clumsy features of C++. It fixes one really good clumsy feature of C++ that most students really appreciate is the fact that there's no pointers. We don't have pointers in Java. Hooray! We still have everything else, though, which is good. And we also have, here's no pointers here. We also have automatic garbage collection, because we don't have any pointers. And for those people who know how to do new, delete, copy constructors, all that other stuff in C++, you don't have to bother with any of that stuff. We still have constructors, but we don't have any deconstructors, no copy constructors. It's a lot lot more simpler, actually. And the other thing that's kind of interesting are the rich libraries, predefined libraries. As I mentioned, Android in the beginning, it's just a package. It's just a library. And you start programming with those classes. You create those objects and you work with that platform in the same way as you write Hello World. It's pretty much the same style, which makes it very flexible for development, actually. And a lot of stuff is written in Java. And one of the other interesting things about Java, it is purely object-oriented as well. You can't program in a procedural imperative style. So you can't go line by line and create from the start of the program to the bottom of the program execution. It kind of doesn't work. It can't work like that at all, actually. So instead, what my next lecture is going to talk about is the concept of the object how objects have existence and what objects are all about. Because what we're doing in object orientation is creating this concept of the object. So you're going to get a brief overview of object orientation in the next lecture. But for the purposes of introducing it in this lecture, focusing on the concept of the data and then the behaviors that are on the data, the functions. So we still have functions in Java, although they're called methods, but it's created the same way. So if you know how to create a function in C++, you're halfway to creating your first class, actually, in Java. It's not too bad. All functions are associated with objects, so we create a bunch of objects. We stick them in a directory. We create a bunch of what I call driver programs. A driver program is the program, if you think about it. It's the starting point for the program. Driver program, all it does is create a bunch of instances of objects, which are, new creations of objects. It just creates objects, and then let the objects play with themselves. That's what ends up happening. That's object orientation. So it's a little different style, and a little easier, I think, if you're not a structured programmer, procedural programmer, or a functional language programmer. This is kind of easier because it resembles real life, theoretically. I don't know. I don't think there's anything real life about programming, but that's what all these books you find on the internet say. I don't know. So almost all data types are objects. Even a file, even a string, even a variable can be treated like an object, which is kind of interesting. A little bit different than C or C++ as well. Everything's an object. Well, in C++, not everything's an object. In fact, C++ breaks object-oriented rules all the time. And C++ actually, you can program in Visual Studio never create an object. Never actually use any of the object-oriented features. Until you've created a class, you actually have never done anything in object orientation in C++. So it's kind of interesting. They go, well, I wrote it in C++. It's an object-oriented language, but it's not an object-oriented program. So it's kind of weird. So you can't do that in Java. You cannot write a non-object-oriented program in Java. It doesn't work. So as I mentioned before, it's I call it a hybrid. This is going to call it a interpreted. It really is actually a hybrid versus a pure interpreted type of language, and here's where most people have their familiarity with it, because a lot of websites will say, hey, you have to install the JVM or the runtime environment. So people go, oh yeah, I just installed Java on my computer. You're thinking, not really. You installed a plugin for your browser to work with the runtime engine, because the website's using Java. Anything that uses Java needs a JVM, which is what is another selling point of Java as a programming language and as a development platform. You just create a new JVM for each one of the platforms you want to run the program on, and you can run the same program on all those different platforms without having to recompile it, without having to change anything. Can't do that in C++. C++, you compile it for Unix, it stays on Unix. You take the source code, recompile it for Windows, take the source code, recompile it for the Mac, if you can. And then, it's just a hassle. Here you just write the program once. Run it on everything. Run it on a web browser. In fact, it's so easy to create an applet that runs in the web browser from an application. In fact, that's your last assignment for this course. It's going to be taking a program that's an application, converting it into an applet, and just changing the GUI around a little bit using the Abstract Window Toolkit. Or Swing, actually, is what you're going to be using for that as well. So, long story short, it promotes portability, reuse. There's a lot of good selling points to it. I call it a hybrid versus an interpreted because it is partly compiled. You're not running text files. You have to take the text file and you have to compile it. But the compilation, what you're getting, is not an executable file. It's not called an exe. It's not even a .com. It's a .class file. And then those class files are run in the JVM environment. So it's intermediate bytecode, if you want to call it that. That's why I think it's not a pure interpreted language, it's a hybrid language. So what benefit do you have of running class files in a JVM environment? Why people do this? Well, because you have class files all over the internet, all over a directory. Every one of those .class files, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes, is a self-running object, is an object. So you can take those objects and reuse them in other programs. You can take those objects and give them to somebody else to use in another program. You can locate them all over the internet, which is kind of the whole concept of using distributed systems. Distribute the application out over a couple of different machines, run it all together in the JVM. And the JVM is actually what brings everything together. So, not going to look at the Enterprise Edition in this class. We're only going to be looking at the JDK. So, if you want the Enterprise Edition, that's client server and the internet. That's another class. I haven't taught that class here in a while, but that class I go through the EE version, Enterprise Edition. So hopefully I'll be teaching that soon again. Who knows? So let's see. It's reliable, secure. It's reliable? Yeah, I guess so. Secure. Well, as anything is these days. Well, one of the interesting things about the JVM is if you've got a JVM, Java Virtual Machine, you're running it as an operating system, theoretically. It's running on top of your operating system. So the JVM is an operating system on top of your operating system. If you've got a complete operating system, you've got virtual environment, you can put security features in there, which they have, garbage collection in there, all a bunch of sort of features. Make it a pretty good feature-rich operating system that doesn't work with the underlying it works on top of it. It doesn't integrate with it. So you can get, you can have a more secure environment, essentially. You have the features there. Reliability, yeah, doesn't need the underlying operating system to support it. So it's more reliable. Is it as reliable? I would say so. As a language, actually, Java's featured as more reliable because there's no pointers, and there's no way for the programmer to make a mistake, theoretically, in terms of the memory allocation and cleanup. It is multi-threaded. For those people who like threads, pthread libraries in C++, we have threads, but it's built in automatically. So you don't have to fork threads after thread. It's actually natively run as a concurrent threaded application. And so you can synchronize methods and classes and stuff by using the word synchronized, actually. A lot easier to do thread programming. I do have thread programming and thread concepts in the lectures. I'm not sure if I'm going to get to it, though. Last time I taught this course, I didn't get to it. So it's kind of like one of those things. You're not going to use it for most of your applications, but occasionally you might have a need to do a threaded type implementation. It's kind of easy to pick up on your own. So I save it for last, and sometimes I get to it, sometimes I don't. And we're also looking at dynamic features, being able to adapt to evolving environments as well. Libraries really add methods and objects and build everything. You can also have, there's also actually, believe it or not, built-in type checking and, built-in exception handling and a lot of different things that you'd think were not automatic that end up being sort of automatically built into it. So exception IO handling, exception handling built into the language. Slower than compiled languages such as C. It is actually kind of slower. And you'll notice some of the IDEs are actually kind of slow. If you download NetBeans, it runs so slowly, which is why I like Eclipse, and I'll show you what to do with that. Because actually both of those two IDEs are written in Java. So unlike VisualStudio.net, when you install that, you get 30 gigabytes of garbage on your computer. I'm not a Microsoft fan. And you get, they give you ASP, Visual Basic, Visual C++. I don't know what else is coming in that now. I don't know, Object-C probably in there. I don't know. That's Mac. C-Sharp. C-Sharp's over there. All that stuff, half people don't use any of it, or maybe they use half of it. They do Visual Basic programming or something. I don't know anyone who really does Visual Basic programming. It's getting a comeback. ASP is getting a comeback. But what you got is an integrated development environment with all the tools and all the compilers and everything all in one, owned by Microsoft. There it is. Java, you don't get that. You install the JDK, which is just and if you have a MacBook, you already have it. There's nothing to install. It's already there. If you don't have a MacBook, you install and you download, I'm going to go through that next, the JDK. And then you have to decide, well, what am I going to build my programs in? You got choices. Notepad, everyone loves Notepad, right? I hate Notepad. You got, or if you're on a MacBook, you got Text Wrangler. Oh, that's nice, But you don't really have anything that automates the whole process, and I'm going to show you both ways because I have some people in the class that love the command prompt, and I love Notepad, and more power to you. And then you have people like me who says, well, let's just download an IDE. I can press a menu option and say compile, run, all that stuff. And I don't have to, I don't have to go to a terminal prompt every 10 minutes every time I want to see something, flipping back and forth between Notepad and a terminal window. And plus you also see, and I'm going to demo it today, Eclipse does a lot of thinking for you. It has a little help in, and it has beautiful little color-coded system, all the variables show up in different colors and stuff. And it'll tell you if you're missing a quote. Notepad doesn't tell you any of that stuff. So. What is this? This is like a compare article. I think the article is still out there, actually, if you're interested in the comparison. However, most people aren't really interested in the comparison. So, are most people in this class going to be using a MacBook? I see a lot of MacBooks, actually. That's nice. Or Windows, probably Windows. I have a Windows Parallels. It's called Parallels, the software. It's a virtual machine environment, and I have Windows XP actually installed on this computer as well. So I kind of flip back and forth, but I actually prefer the the Mac environment more so, because it's just easier to deal with all the Microsoft stuff, because I love Microsoft. So. All right, that's enough about that. Follow the online instructions for installing it. Right now I'm going to skip this Hello World, and we're going to come back to Hello World in a second. This is the interactive part of today's lecture number 1. What I want to do is tell you what you need to get. So I mentioned before, and those of you who came in a little bit late, please remember that if you want the easy way of getting your Java installed, and before you even do it, see if you've even got it. You might even have it already. And if you're on a MacBook, you might actually have Java installed already. You don't have to bother with any of this stuff. However, if you're not, go into the course materials, go down here, and it's the Java video tutorials is what you want. Highly, highly, highly recommend. If you go through this, you're going to have it installed. There's no Google searching for anything at this point. Okay, this will walk you through it. So. And I know I say this over and over again, and I inevitably get emails from students. What version of Java do we need? Where do I find it? How do I download it? It's not running right. I'm not doing tech support, by the way. How do you know if you got it? If you're on a MacBook, open up a little terminal prompt. You see, it gets bigger too. Type in Java C. Press return, get a bunch of error messages out on the screen. Actually, not error messages. It's just messages telling me that I don't have it installed correctly. Or no, that I haven't run the command correctly. Because I'm supposed to type in Java C with the name of a Java file. So this is what you want to see. If you get bad command or file name, for example, this is what you're going to get. Java, here, I'll just misspell Java C, there we go. If that says that, you don't have it installed, or it's not in your path. Because if you're on a MacBook, you don't have to worry about the path. If you're on a Windows system and you're at a DOS prompt, which is the equivalent to this terminal prompt, and you get that, and you say, I have installed it, go to the tutorial that has you set your environment variables correctly. Because you have to go into the Windows system from the control panel and set your environment variables to include the Java directory in your class, in your path, and you have to set a class path. And there's a bunch of minor little steps you have to go through. Because after you download it and install it, you go, oh wow, there's no icon on your desktop. There's nothing. You just got to go to the DOS prompt and type in this little command, and then you go, it's not working, but I installed it. And then that's when the students send me an email message, and I go to tutorial number 3 or 4. I can't remember which one it is right now, but I'm going to definitely refresh my memory soon. And then find out how to check your environment variables, because you don't have it installed correctly. All right, so let's figure out what you need to install, actually. And this is not a replacement for going through the tutorials. However, this is a quick and easy way of figuring out what do I need to install. Like any good college student, you go to Google. If I can type it correctly. I'm going to Google, I'm going to type in download Java, JDK, or download Java, download something. and it's going to take me to here. I want the Java SE downloads, and I want to make sure I get it from the Oracle websites. There's a lot of other sites out there. Actually, they've narrowed it down. It's not too bad. In the past, there was like a ton of other places you can get it from. Just go to the Oracle, and you'll see it says Oracle up here. And you go, but I want Sun and I want Java. And it's Oracle. You can't actually get Oracle from this website though, which is kind of weird. You gotta go to another Oracle website. And then you look in here going, oh, what do I need? Unless you like to install a bunch of junk on your computer. Well, I shouldn't say that either. Someone's going to reply to this YouTube video and go, you just call everything junk. Unless you want to wait, if you're a slow programmer and you like going in to get coffee and you like taking restroom breaks and stuff while your software is loading, install NetBeans. That will give you the experience you're looking for. If you want streamline, use Eclipse. I'm going to show you Eclipse next. You can't install Eclipse with Java. However, you got to get Java. So you don't want the EE version. This is going to clutter your system up with a bunch of stuff. This one's going to install a bunch of IDEs you don't necessarily want to use. This one, stay away from it. Unless you want to get into a lot of the internet development stuff or the database stuff. I believe the database is in here. Glassfish's stuff is in here. Just go to the first icon there. It says Java on it. And you want the one that says JDK. So you go down here and you say, well, what do I want? You don't want just the JVM. You want the JDK. So here's the JDK includes the JVM and the JDK. They used to call it SDK, Software Development Kit. This is JDK, Java Development Kit. That's all you need. Pick the right one. If you pick the wrong one, it doesn't install. So you wait. And this, I'm not going to download this. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to sit here and bore you with this. But what's going to end up happening is that you're going to sit, maybe an hour, 45 minutes. Actually, if you do it right now on the network, because there's nobody here, it'll probably go pretty fast. You get a fast speed. And then you'll start to install it, and the first thing it does is checks to see if you're a 32-bit or a 64-bit. If you got the wrong one, it's not working for you. It's just going to cancel, and then you have to go download it again. So save yourself some time and find out what operating system you're on. Because I've actually had email questions with people saying, it says it's not the right platform. Yeah, because you got a 64-bit processor. You have the wrong version of Windows. For that one that you're trying to install. So after you've gotten that downloaded, the install is fairly simple. Go through the videos and you can get that. And then go back to your other college students' favorite way of finding stuff on the internet and say download Eclipse. Oops, there it is right there. And Eclipse. Then you're going to pick the first one on the list. It's going to say, and you want to get it from the Eclipse website. Don't get it from the other websites. It's eclipse.org. You can just go to it. If you remember it, you can just go to eclipse.org. And then now you're faced with a bunch of decisions to make again. And this is all, because I'm on a MacBook, it's all going to give me the Mac stuff. If you log in on a Windows, it's going to give you the Windows versions. And you're going to be sitting here going, which one do I need? Eclipse is a fairly decent IDE because it supports C++, Java, PHP, bunch of scripting languages, bunch of development environments. Nice. EE version. You can use it, once you get familiar with it, you can use it for a lot of different tools, even the Android stuff. So it's worth an investment in your time. NetBeans you can't do anything with outside of program with Java. But a lot of undergraduate programs love to teach NetBeans because it's a little easier in terms of understanding concepts. There's a lot more new user, new programmer type of things in it. So if you're struggling with Eclipse, you might want to try out NetBeans because it might actually be more helpful to you. It might guide you a little bit better. It won't allow you to make a pack. It won't allow you to create a project unless you've done certain things, and it won't. It sets the projects up a little bit differently, but it probably might. Some students do find it easier to use. So, but if you want to take the challenge, download Eclipse. What you need is the Eclipse IDE for Java developers. this is the one you need. Don't pick the first one. It's too big, and you don't need it unless you're going to do RMI and you're going to work with servlets. If you want to have full servlet support and full RMI, then if you're going to do that, you're going to download the Java EE option. You're not going to do the JDK because you actually have to do both. You have to download Eclipse and you have to download Java. So NetBeans, you just download one. You get both. So that's why a lot of other students like, because it's easier. You don't have to install Java. NetBeans install does it for you. Gets you up and running. Even does your environment variables. So that's another choice. That's that Netscape that I complained, NetBeans that I complained about before. It has pros and cons. There are some good things about it. But this is the one you need right here. You don't need the rest of the stuff. If you download one of the other ones, you'll find there's different code names for it. It doesn't really matter what version of Eclipse you've got. All of the different code names. In fact, I probably have an older one out there. These are all different interfaces. If you've got one, and you can actually do a hybrid, you can actually do C++ with Java, I believe. I usually just download and update fresh. So once you've installed, and Eclipse is actually kind of interesting because Eclipse, when you download it, you get a directory, you get a zip file, and you take the zip file and you unzip it, and you take the directory and you copy it into your Java directory. There's no install for it. It's a Java program, actually. It's a Java application. So, and when you get that, what you end up having, and here I'll just take you to the Windows. Well, you'll see Windows coming up for Windows people. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Oh, here we go. You're like, I thought you had a MacBook. I have Windows too. Maybe I should have started it up prior though. Let's see. Because I'm going to show you something else I highly recommend doing as well. Which, it's probably not very standard. But I like to rename the directories. Just because when you download the Java and you install it, you're going to get Java.1.9.7, whatever. It's the version number, which is going to be like 12 spaces long or something. Just rename it to Java. And I'll just point out two things because this Windows people, this is the hardest part of the install, actually. It's figuring out how to change the environment variables. And I know this is kind of basic, but if I don't cover it, I'm going to get questions. Any minute this will load up. Look at that. Loaded up. So when you download it and you install it, you're going to get a directory in program files. And it's going to be called Java. That one will be there. And then underneath it here where it says JDK is going to be version 1. This is where the names get long. So when you download Eclipse, you get a folder. Here's your folder. I just drag it and I put it in the Java directory. Because there's no install for it. You just drag it over and you put it in. And the videos will walk you through that. So if you're curious, after you've downloaded and you've run the install for Java, which gives you absolutely no confirmation that anything is installed correctly, you go out to Windows, you go out to File Manager, make sure you have two directories, a JDK directory and a JRE directory. And I got an old version, I got 6 on here. Yours were probably going to say 7 or 8 or something. You want the JDK directory because in the JDK directory is where you're going to have the bin directory, and the bin directory is where you're going to have Java C and Java, here we go, Java C, which is your compiler, and Java, which is your runtime environment. So that's your command for that. So if you're in a DOS prompt, if you're in a DOS world, you go to a DOS prompt, and you type in Java C, and it's the same output I just showed you on the Mac side. So it's the same. So everything I'm showing you in Windows, on the Mac, is going to be identical to what you're going to be doing in Windows. So there's no, which is the great thing. Even the Eclipse is identical. So you don't have to worry about that stuff. I'm going to leave this up actually a little bit because, whoops, there we go. Because I'm going to start demoing stuff now. So you've downloaded Java, you've downloaded Eclipse, you have gone to the DOS prompt, and lo and behold, you get this message. Uh-oh. It's not a recognizable internal, or, so the first thing you want to do, just as a word of advice, just go to the control panel, go to System, and this is all in the video as well. Go to Advanced, click on Environment Variables. Look down in the lower box for Path. Click on that, and then this is the problem normally. You got to make sure you put that on the path. The other instructions will show you how to set what's called the class path. So in here, you're going to set another environment. You're going to actually create what's called, you're going to go New. And up here, you're going to say Class Path. You're going to fill in the information in the video. Will show you how to do that. What does that allow you to do? Well, if you locate, you may not actually need it at all. You might not even run into a situation where you need the class path set. But the class path is if you locate directories with library files in it, packages all over the place. It's not all in the same location. It needs to know where they are. Otherwise, you're going to get a message that says, can't find main, can't find this, can't find... It just eliminates all of this searching and just says, this is where everything is. These are all where all my classes are. So that's kind of a helpful thing to do. I don't even think I have it set because we're not doing anything in this course that's going to need like third-party libraries and stuff like that. And the Eclipse browser actually sets the environment class path for me automatically as well, so I don't have to worry about that. In fact, let's just take a look here at the Eclipse browser. So when you install it, on the bottom, you're going to see this little world thing, and then you get this thing that comes up. Oops, let me get rid of this, let me get rid of this, let me get rid of that. And then I have the Helios version, yours might be something else. This is old, actually. And then it'll look like it's kind of frozen. It does take a few minutes, but once it actually does get started, it runs pretty quickly. Here it is now. It's Workbench is loading. I'll just preview this for you. Looks like on a Windows system. Let me make this a little smaller so you can see it. Maybe not so full screen. There we go. Looks pretty simple. A little menu, do stuff. It looks, you don't want the interface example. Anyway, if you click on it, well, I think that's actually, I took that off. But it kind of looks like the old Microsoft Visual Studio without the .NET. I think like 4.0 Microsoft Visual C++ is what it kind of reminds me of. But, it can allow you to do a new Java project, and then you can create a new project. Give it names. I'm going to go through that in the next video. But kind of that's what the goal is. That's what the browser looks like. So let me go back to the lecture. And oops, not that one. Hold on one second. Get myself organized here. Here we go. Going to go through the basics, which is at the end of this lecture, lecture number 1. After you have the software installed, so the idea is to kind of get your software up and running, and then, figure out what you're going to do with it. And when you start doing that, let me just do it this way. There we go. On slide number 9, if you make note of lecture number 1, you're going to get the, what do I do with this now, information. What you do with this, is really up to you, but if you want to learn Java, what you're going to do is kind of maybe follow through on this by creating your first source code file. It's like your, what do they call that? Hello World? Yeah, the hello world of Java. And you can actually take this code, cut it, copy it, put it in a text file. I'm going to just do this on the Mac side because it's a little easier. Text, if you're interested and you have a MacBook, you want to download, it's free, Text Wrangler. Text Wrangler right here. Text Wrangler. It's the name of the program you want. Why do you want that? Well, actually, I recently found it in the HTML class because it doesn't put formatting in here. And actually, usually I get at least 1 or 2 students who try to use Microsoft Word. Don't use Microsoft Word for this. You need a text editor, not a word processor. You'd think, though, because people don't think, and they go, oh, Microsoft Word. I know it because when I see the source code submitted in a Word format, but you didn't run that. It's impossible to run that. So I use a text editor, use Notepad or something. So now I've copied the text, and instead of showing you the lecture, I'm just going to go through the steps of the lecture. I'll just demo it to you. But what this is doing in part 1, part 2, part 3, so part 1 is cutting and pasting it, putting it into a file. One interesting thing to note about Java, and this is where I'm going to start in with a Java lecture, essentially, is you've got to name the file with the same name as the class that's defined inside of it. And it's case sensitive. So this particular class here is called Hello World. So here's a cheat sheet method, method that I always do. Cut and paste the name of the class that's in there, and then when I save it, I'm going to do a save as. I'm going to put it on here, just like that, and then I'm going to go .java. So the source code files, and I know this is really basic, so if you know this already, just hang in there. It'll get more advanced very soon. You have to put a .java extension on the end of it, and I'm going to say save. And I think I put it in the bhacker directory, so if I go out to my command prompt and I list it out, I'm going to see nothing. No, what am I going to? Here it is right here. Hello world .java. I'm not going to talk about Hello World till the next lecture, but, well, you don't really have to. I'm just going to put Hello World on the screen. It's going to print something to the screen. So if I want to compile it without using Eclipse, I go like this, and I go Java C, and I actually have to be it's case sensitive. I actually have to type in hello. Oops, I actually have to type it correctly. But you know what? I probably could paste it. Look at that. I can paste it. Well, let's do it this way. And paste it correctly. There we go. And I actually have to type in the .java on that too. This is the other thing where new students who are just learning Java, and it makes you feel stupid, but it's like you don't have to do this in C++ if you're doing it this way. I mean, Java's a little bit picky actually. So if you type in Java C to run it, it should come back and say nothing. Come back and say we're done. This gives you a prompt. Hopefully, there it is. There's a prompt. In order to run the sucker, you have to type in Java space, but no .class, which is inconsistent. So you'd think you'd have to go .class, but if you do this, you're going to get an error. Oh, and you're going to go no class defined, found error, because it's actually just looking for the name of the file. So to fix the error, you would take out the .class and you'd run it. And when you run it, this is printing hello world to the screen, as you can see right here. And if I look in the directory after I've compiled it, I have two files right here. I have the one I created in the text editor, and I have the one with the .class file. Don't look for an exe file, you're not going to see it. It doesn't exist. All the executable files are the .classes, and when you run them, you can't put the .class on the name. You get an error message, which is kind of odd, because when you compile it, you give it the whole name. And it won't compile it unless it has a .java extension on it, which is kind of weird. So, one of those. Once you get used to that, that's really the only odd thing about using the command line. And you can use the command line for the entire course, actually. You can do everything you wanted to in the command line. Or, you can use Eclipse. If you're using Eclipse, let's just demo Eclipse real quick here. And this is the same Eclipse you're going to see on the Windows side. In fact, if I close the Windows side, my computer might run a little bit faster. We don't need Windows. Let me close it. If you don't have a MacBook, actually, you can get one for $699. Comes complete with it. Just kidding. I don't know. I think it is $699 or something like that. It's white though. I like white. I think if they had the titanium Air books, the MacBook Air for $699, but a dozen of them. Huh? Yeah, that's what this one is. Flash. I can toss this around and the hard drive is never going to break. Yeah, I like it. And it's faster, actually. Yeah, it's fast. All right, not to sell you on a Mac. but it's the best computer ever on the market. All right, so let's say, for example, we want to use Eclipse, and this is the stuff I'm going to talk about later today. I'm going to go through assignments in Eclipse, but I'm trying to run Hello World just to see if everything's up correctly. I can go File, New, and I can say, well, do I want a class file? Yeah, I think I do, actually. I think I want a class file. In fact, I can actually take it a step further and go File, New. Do I want a Java project? Yeah, I'll take a project. And then I create a project. I'm going to call this test. I'm going to go, OK, finish. Now I have a little thing up here that says test on it. If I open up test, hello, there we go. Have to be patient. I have a source directory. Here's the one problem with most students. It doesn't create, that first file for you. Bummer. This is where NetBeans is going to be a little bit easier if you're not familiar with programming at all. Here's going to assume that you know what source directory is, SRS, because it's kind of like the old, it's kind of old C style if you think about it. When we used to have source directory, bin directories, build directories, all that stuff. It's kind of the same thing. We have the JRE system here. Don't do anything with that. Don't delete it. Just leave it alone. And in the source directory, that's where you can go File, New. And you can go, well, what do I want? I want a class. So I select a class. And it's going to tell me where I want to put it. It's going to put it in test source. And then I'm going to, I'm not going to put a package on there. Instead, I'm just going to give it a name. I'm going to call it helloworld.app. Using the fact, oh yeah, it's going to tell me that using the default package is discouraged. But right now, I don't really care about packages. We're going to talk about packages later on in the course. Probably not until after the midterm. I'm just going to say finish. And now I have in here the default package that it created for me. And in here, oops, I have Hello World. Now if I go like this, I right mouse click on it, or if I come up to the menu and use the menu, I can go run. I can compile it. Probably gonna, if I go run on the top here, it's gonna ask me, well, I think I want to make it as an application. I don't want to run it as an applet. It's an application. I go OK. Selection does not have a main type. Oh, that's because it's empty. I have to cut. Hold on one second. I have to cut and paste my code. Oh, where'd my lecture go? Hold on one second. Here it is. I forgot a step. All right. Well, it was smart enough to tell me it didn't have a main. So, and I'll talk about main after our first break. Let's see. Now I got source code in there. That's good. I just got and pasted it off. That's my first Hello World program. So I'm going to write it from the, actually instead of using the menu, I'll show you this way. Right mouse click on it, go down here to run. Now it's going to say, now it knows what it is actually. It's an application. So I'm going to say application. Compiles it for me, runs it for me. Below, lo and behold, at the bottom of the screen here, I got Hello World. It's my console window. That's why I like Eclipse, actually. Now everything's color-coded nicely. And you just go like this, and you go, oh, let's just run. Run it as something, Change the configurations, because, I don't have it. Maybe I do. Let me see real quick here. No, I didn't have Android. I can tell when it says Android project up here. You can create an Android project. You can put your .java files in your Android project, and you go run, and it'll actually put the emulator as an option there, and it runs it in the emulator for you. If you're familiar with iPhone development, Android's so much easier. And you can run it right from Eclipse. So. Anyway, so I think I went through all the steps, but let me just make sure. So if you're following along and getting started, you're cutting and pasting and putting it into a text file. You are in step number 2, compiling it either at the DOS prompt, which I just did a few minutes ago, or and if you're getting this error message, you're going back and doing what I showed you before about the environment variables, changing that around, and then you're going to run it. When you run it, you're going to make sure you don't put the dot class on here. This is going to go through that error message I just showed you. Otherwise, you're going to see also maybe perhaps this class path error message. And then you're going to take a break, like what we're going to do right now. And then we're going to come back and start in with lecture number 2. and actually start programming, start writing programs. This was your very quick orientation to Java. So let's take a break, and then we're going to come back. And how long do you guys want? Like 10 minutes? 5 minutes? Usually I like to give like 5 or 10 minutes just because it's easier. Okay, 10 minutes. That was about 10 minutes. 11:20 something. 11:20, we'll start again. Okay, see you back.